it is 5:39 p.m. on Monday, July 20th. This is Amy Edwards, and I would like to call the Rockford Area Board of Education to work session to order. And I will start with roll call. Brady Anderson.
Here.
Beth Praska.
Here.
Kevin Campbell.
Here.
Jessica Johnson.
Here.
Eric Gordy.
Here.
Amy Edwards here. We have full quorum of the board at our work session. Right now, just should anyone be listening to this audio tape, we are having a bit of technical difficulty with our new board book premiere. And the website is currently down, and which it houses our work session agenda. So we will just continue to work through the technical difficulty at this point in time, working to get a copy of the board agenda out to the board so that we can approve it and move forward with our board business. And I know that Amanda is working on, I believe, grabbing that from her own files, I hope. She is not online right now. Oh,
There she is.
I'm here.
Great.
Site is still down. Trying to find an alternative solution.
Wonderful. Yeah, Amanda, if you even just have do you have a written copy? You know, like a Word document that you could send up to the board, that would be good for us to look at and approve.
I will try to get one to you shortly.
Thanks, Amanda.
Kathy, are you there? Did you happen to make a copy of the work session agenda?
I did not. I was leaving that for Amanda, hoping this didn't plan on this premiere thing not working.
I'm into board book premiere right now.
Oh, good. Sweet. Let's all try that real quick, everybody. Thanks, Jessica, for continuing to try.
I can't get into it because there was a email issue and I wasn't able to download it yet. So I won't be able to get into board book premiere today. Jessica, I'm not getting any responses.
I got in. Now it's just spinning. So it must have been up for a second and I got in and then it shut down again.
Yeah, mine's just spinning as well.
Well, we know we're going to have a technology update. We know that's on the agenda. We know the board book premiere item is on the agenda. Those were the two main things, as Rhonda said. Can we proceed without the document?
Those are the only two things, actually.
Because we got, shrinking amount of time to hammer through this stuff now.
Not my whole thing. Are you guys all frozen now? Okay, perfect.
No.
In the interest of time, I would take a motion to approve an agenda with two agenda items. The third one would then be our superintendent, like our work session updates and those sort of things at the end, which we announce our next meetings. But those are the two agenda items of meet today.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's work agenda with the 3 items of board book overview, review of technology, and work session updates.
I have a first from Eric Gordy. Do I have a second?
I'd like to revise the motion to exclude the board book overview, given its unreliability right now. So motion to approve an agenda for a technology update and other administrative related updates.
All right, so I will remove my first motion then, so then we don't have to vote on Brady's amendment, if possible. So I will remove my first motion. And now I will motion to approve the board agenda for the work session with the technology updates and work session updates.
Great. So I have a first from Eric Gordy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Brady Anderson. Because we are still virtual, this is a roll call vote. Beth Preska.
Aye.
Kevin Campbell.
Aye.
Jessica Johnson.
Aye.
Eric Gordy.
Aye.
Brady Anderson.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. So we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the technology update from John Engel.
Hello, everybody. I presume I can use the presentation mode. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to bring up let's see. I take it you guys can see that?
Yep.
Okay, so that's just the introduction there. Basically, I put together just some information for a discussion tonight during the work session. I heard through Rhonda that, there was some concern about, where were we at with the entire springtime distribution of devices in the collection. So this slide just represents that. Families served of 240, total of 335 devices. Returned to date 200, and that kind of got slowed down because there was some just miscommunication about summer school and things along that line. So I had an idea in place and that didn't work out. So it's a little bit lower than we had expected to be. Today we're a little bit lower than we expected to be at. In use, those are the students that have a device still in their possession for both the ESY program, Acellus, which is the credit recovery program, and then summer school, which starts next Monday. And then we have approximately 100 that are not returned. So far, damages, we've had 3 devices with some screen issues, and then we have 8 that are missing cords and or chargers. And why I say those numbers are approximate is because our main spreadsheet has changed over time. So like family served might be off by a couple, et cetera. So any questions on that? Okay. I was actually kind of happy that our damages, I was expecting a little bit more, but kids and families took care of our devices, which is great.
John, I do have a question. This is Brady. Any concern about the 100 devices that are not returned at this point?
Not really, because like I say, I don't want to go into all the details, but there were just some. Each building was sending out some kind of different information, so I'm sure they'll come back. We'll track it down. I just kind of stopped doing it because of the whole situation with summer school. So many people I shouldn't say so many, but a few people had responded and said, we haven't made up our mind about summer school. Can we still hold on to it? And I said, of course you can. So that's kind of where that's at.
Sure. I was just curious if it was out of line with your expectations. Sounds like that's not the case. Thank you.
Not yet, Brady. This next slide is kind of historical. This is our original device plan going back many, many years. It's like, when we started talking about, what is the future? How do we get into one-to-one to be competitive with other districts around us, et cetera? As far back as when Ted Botten was the board chair, so it was some time ago. But at that time, and it really hasn't changed until recently, but, our plan was to have Chromebook for all high school students in a one-to-one take-home environment. In the middle school, at the time, it was Amy Dennison, and more recently, Dr. Anderson Hume agreed with it as well, is to have Chromebook carts in the academic classrooms in grades 5 through 8. And then for the elementary school, we always talked about having a Chromebook cart available for every 2 classrooms, so kind of a one device for every 2 students in grades 3 and 4. And then also the same for the students in grades K through 2, but switching over to a Chrome tablet device as opposed to a Chromebook. With that in mind, going up to even the end of this school year in May and June, we had some capital dollars that were available to spend from last year. So some of the things that I've been working on or that I ordered at that time are displayed in the next 3 slides. So in the high school, in addition to our capital spending, we also, as you know, have the IB grant that is funding a lot of our technology in the high school. So it was decided in, I think it was March, that we would go to a take-home plan for 9th and 10th grades for this fall. And that is all funded through the IB grant. The media center, with the changes going on physically in that space this summer, we decided to take out the old PCs that were running a kind of it was running Chrome through a product called Neverware. Anyway, so that we took those out, and there was concern about having devices available there. So I did have money from capital for a 40-unit cart in that space. And then these last 2 rows kind of show, it shows 9th grade in 21-22. So that'll be 1-to-1, again, IB funded. And so then we'll have 9th, 10th, and 11th that will have take-home computers. And then 22-23 will be the last year for 9th grade, and then all 4 grades will have been completed. Any questions on that?
So, yeah, John, this is Eric. So when we go through the 2021 school year, that would be 9th and 10th grade, and I would presume that the 19-20 school year included the 9th grade. Is that true for a 1-to-1, or are we waiting to 2021 to purchase the 9th and 10th grade 1-to-1 device?
9th grade, we did do in carts. We did 9th grade for 19-20 school year. So they had the advantage of having carts in their academic classrooms. There were 5 carts with the appropriate amount of Chromebooks to support the highest level of the section rosters. So we're switching to allow those to go home with the 9th and 10th graders this coming fall. Well, that was the plan. We're talking also in a couple of slides. You'll see what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So, and then my next question is, do your next slides include replacement as well, the replacement cycle for these purchases, or is that not included in this presentation?
I haven't gone into detail. I have a completely different spreadsheet that kind of shows how IB supports. There was funding. I have it printed out here at home. The idea was to go with a 3-year cycle. So we do have some funds in the last year of IB that can start replacing the ones that have been out there for a few years or for 3 years. But I don't have that in a presentation form right now.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was just wondering if that was part. That's fine. Thank you.
You bet. So in the middle school for this coming year, again, with the capital spending, this is non-IB, obviously, we talked about getting our 8th graders prepared for 1-to-1 in the high school. So we talked about this in the last few years, but we did have funding to add 2 more carts into the 8th grade so that the 4 academic classes would have full-time 1-to-1 in the classroom. Those are on order. And then I also had enough funds to do 2 more floater carts, and with a total of 9 carts. So we are approaching that target of 12 in the academic classes. We're pretty darn close, even with our funding to date. And finally, for this implementation of the plan, we have the elementary school. So I was able to purchase a new cart for 4th grade. So that shows that we now have, or we will have, 3 carts for 5 sections. Plus, there's also a digital literacy cart, which is in that grade level. So that we're already exceeding our plan on that, in that grade level. And in 3rd grade, we're adding a cart, which basically gets us, 3 carts for 5. We're obviously over that 50% mark. In the lower grades, K through 2, we purchased 90 Chrome tablets, trying to get 5 into each section of the classrooms. So a total of 90, or right now it's sitting at 18 sections. So it's 5 in each room. So we're at about 25%, or half of our target, to do 1 device for 2 children. So about a week and a half ago, Rhonda approached me and we had a discussion about where we're at today and what are our possibilities to kind of address this whole situation in fall coming up. We're tasked by the MDE and the governor saying it's like, well, let's plan for back to school, or possible hybrid situation, or possible distance learning. With that in mind, Rhonda said, can we go 1-to-1 district-wide? So these are kind of the brief, high-level goals of what that would mean. Providing a device for every student K through 12, enhance classroom technology to better support distance learning, and I have a typo there. We're talking about some sort of better recording of online meetings, cameras, etc., so that we can do some synchronous and asynchronous for the kids in a hybrid situation. We still have to work on ensuring reliable access for families to the best of our ability. And I'm kind of this guy that keeps beating this drum in the background. Even with our handing out of hotspots this spring, we did find that families still struggle, sometimes because of geographical location, where they're down in a valley, or they're just in a spot where they don't have good access to a cell tower, etc. Now, we also ran into a lot of problems where, especially when it first started, all of a sudden everybody's working at home and you've got 2 kids, or even 1 student, trying to share the same internet access, whether they had cable or what have you. And that still is a struggle. And it's not just for our district, as we all know. And then, of course, we want to provide continued technical support for all staff and students. Any questions on this? Okay. So the big question, how do we fund it? So through CARES from the federal government coming to the state, these are the allocations that Rockford received. Gear was kind of intended for hardware and access. The $20,000 that's listed there, I think, has been miscalculated, and I've been having some conversations and emails with MDE. It was kind of based on the odd questioning of how they reached out to us. And basically said that we did a great job by distributing all of our in-house computers, so we really didn't need access to some of those funds. So as you can imagine, I'm kind of a bulldog about, getting our fair share. So I've been going back and forth with a few people at MDE, and that's where we sit today. The ESSER money is another fund that's based on, and Rhonda, maybe you can jump in, but it's kind of based on Title I, from what I understand. It's a calculation based on number of students with that. And then the third amount there is there's a 90-10%, and the 10% is just a different way of how you apply for it. But the total amount that we are able to basically, it's not really a grant process. It's allocated to our district. We just have to basically provide the documentation to show that we're spending the money appropriately. So the total is $151,000. And in talking to Rhonda, it sounds like there's been discussion that throughout the district and maybe even with board members that, it might be just a good way to use that money to make sure that we can fund this one-to-one if we decide to go that way. The other options are take it out of the general fund. And then more recently, Wright County has reached out to Rhonda directly, and apparently they have a pile of money that they don't know how to spend. And so they're reaching out to school districts within Wright County to see if there are ways that they could assist in any of the type of funding that we may need to get through this COVID situation with distance learning, et cetera. And I don't have any more information on that, and I haven't heard from Rhonda whether she's, gotten back to the Wright County folks to find out any more details on that. I did hear over the weekend that other counties are doing that with their districts as well. I think the counties were well funded, and I guess they're having a hard time finding applicable costs that they can actually spend that money on.
So just a couple of added things. John, thank you for that, because I know we're kind of pressed for time here. The CARES funding is, the application process is not an extensive process like the IB grant was. The IB grant was very detailed oriented. This is not. Like John said, it's more of we've already have the funds. It's more just saying, what are we using those funds for? And John is absolutely right that Wright County did reach out, as well as Hennepin County now. The Wright County is having a meeting though tomorrow at 1:30. And so we'll see where that goes. It does feel as if the counties were issued funding and they seem to not know what to do with it, because it does have to relate directly to COVID relief, if you will. And so, yeah, they're reaching out to school districts. So I've had both Hennepin County and Wright County reach out. Wright County is a little bit more aggressive in terms of their process. Like I said, we have a meeting tomorrow at 1:30, and Hennepin County has simply reached out and said, hey, if we happen to have additional funding, would you be interested? And of course, the answer is yes. So hopefully I'll know more about the Wright County funding tomorrow. And John, did you have one more slide, I think?
Yeah, I might. I have a couple. It's kind of hard to see when you're presenting, but so I wanted to go over the numbers. Let me see how many more slides I have. So I have two more. I'll go quick. So district-wide one-to-one devices. Where are we at today? We have 625 Chromebooks and 5 Chrome tablets that are suitable for distribution. I'm excluding ones that I wouldn't want to send home because it would just lead to a frustration with the students involved. They're too old. In the classroom, we can deal with them. I know it's frustrating, but that's what we have. But there's about 300 plus that should be end of life. I mean, we should definitely just replace those. The next bullet item: 333 Chromebooks and 85 Chrome tablets. That's what I have on order for the summer. ETA is unknown. I don't call, but I email about every 2-3 days. And nobody is giving information on ship dates. It's not happening. So in a one-to-one world, what do we need to move forward? We would need an additional 283 Chrome tablets for an estimated total of $76,000. And we would need 152 new Chromebooks needed for grades 3 through 8 and 11 for 12. Now, you might ask, it's like, what are we doing with 9th and 10th? I'm keeping that out of it because 9th and 10th are being funded by IB. So they're not, the numbers aren't tabulated in this configuration at all. So that's a total of 44. And then cases are some sort of smaller way for the tablet to be taken back and forth from school. And then also some sort of either a notebook case or something along that. It adds up. It's $25,000, and that's, I think I estimated at $10 for the smaller ones and 15 for the larger ones. and it might be cheaper, but so my total there estimate right now is about $145,000. The added classroom technology, I'm not even there yet. I'm looking at all sorts of options, and I told Rhonda about a week ago that it might be as much as $50,000, but that's just, I just did a quick calculation on having a standard camera in each room. But I hate putting down numbers when I have no idea really what I'm able to do with it. So that's where that's at. Any questions on these numbers?
So John, you're talking about a district enrollment next year of right around 1,300 students, if I do my math quickly, 1,300 to 1,400 students.
No, it's more than that. It's 6.
Eric, you're not taking into account the 9th and 10th grade Chromebooks.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that's an extra 300 then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. So John, so we have this, and this is basically just for one-to-one. Previous questions that we've asked in our referendums also dealt with infrastructure needs. We all know that sometimes we drop our Wi-Fi in our own meetings on the board. So I don't know, is that, I mean, we're just talking about devices basically, right? So.
Well, that's a great segue, Eric, and a great question. That's my number one challenge right now for infrastructure. We worked with a vendor to come out and do a campus-wide study of what our wireless looked like, because it's all outdated. There's new equipment out there for access points, as well as switches and hubs, etc., in all of our closets. So they did that in, I want to say, early May, and we actually applied for our E-rate funding to our maximum amount, and the federal government has not committed to those letters of approval yet. So basically I put in for, I should have the number with me and I forgot to do that, but it's out of our pocket, it's about $140 or $160,000, but we also get, that's only 40% of the real cost, because we get a 60% discount through E-rate. And I apologize, I should have those numbers on this slide, and I just didn't think about it. So that's in the works, but the challenge is they haven't approved it yet, so we can't order it yet, so I don't see it happening on day one of school. So there's going to be a struggle before all of this stuff kind of catches up, which also leads into the next item with timing for, if I was to order everything tomorrow, those additional tablets and Chromebooks that we need, I don't know when they're going to come in. It could be November. It could be December.
Right.
Another challenge, if we're told that we can open up school completely, even if we had the devices in place for the start of school, I would caution us from handing those out to everybody because of the infrastructure problem. We couldn't support it all. I think if everybody ramped those things up on any given day, we'd have so much frustration with students and staff and so many support issues, it would be a nightmare. And then there's also the issue of carts. If we're in an in-school situation, I would hate to go out and purchase, I estimated somewhere between $15,000 and $24,000 just in carts to have those things all stored properly and charging at night. So that's you can probably guess where my recommendation is going, is if we're back in school full time, we kind of hold off on the whole one-to-one district-wide. That's kind of my recommendation. The other issue is with hybrid in the 50% on, 50% off. We talked at a DAT meeting recently, and we're a little bit concerned with some of the younger kids. How many are going to come in and say, "Oh, I forgot my tablet. Oh, I forgot this. I forgot that," etc. So I just put that down. And then, of course, the big issue is sustainability. Short term, the next 2 years of IB spending, that'll be another 2 grade levels of Chromebooks, so approximately let's say 140 each year. That'll obviously help us replace other older Chromebooks that are out, if they are out. And then, of course, there's the long-term sustainability of the, the tech levy we didn't pass, basically. Does that all make sense, or it was I mean, I'm trying to hit all the key points.
Yeah, so John, a couple questions. This also only takes into account the student use of technology. I mean, all of our staff also need a device, right? And those are aging out, I would presume, as well, and needing replacement?
Absolutely. And that is normally covered through usually capital. Each year, historically, I've gotten somewhere between, $65,000 and $95,000. And generally, when we get hit up with that staff refresh, we're able to handle that through a capital purchase. So that's where that is.
Could you go back 3 slides, John, to your money with the CARES?
Yes.
There you go. So if I recall correctly, the ESSER money is targeted money, though, correct? Title money, those have to go in, that money has to be allocated into specific program use?
Not necessarily. I've sat through basically the same webinar twice, and MDE folks were saying that if you're short for technology, it can be used for that. And many people, myself included, said, "Are you sure?" And they said yes. Mm. So that's a decision that's a decision that has to be made, obviously, prior to doing that. But
so they lighten their restrictions a little bit.
Yeah, Eric, when I reread it, and I'm looking at it again right now, and I can send it to you, really almost everything that we're talking about, whether it's related to technology or PPE or social emotional learning, additional staffing, really anything really kind of qualifies under the ESSER.
If I can add, Eric, and well, everybody, hopefully some of these other, I'd like to see MDE actually fund us according to the formula that they came up with, because I calculated out that we should be getting about $221,000 just for technology. So there's that. And then, of course, let's skip the general fund. We want to protect that as much as we can for this, because it's unknown cost right now. And then if we can get assistance from the counties, hopefully we will have that ESSER money for the other items that Rhonda just mentioned.
So, I mean, so I see 151,000, but we can't take all of that for devices, right? I mean, we need to look at temperature taking. We need to look at barriers and PPE and other, software possibly. So, I mean, granted, that's a lot of money right there and maybe more. But, I mean, we can't necessarily say that all of that money can be associated to that, to funding one-to-one devices. And it could, but then we'd be short-sighted for our other needs. Rhonda, question?
Well, you're absolutely right. It could, but it doesn't have to. I mean, we can take some of these, like we're currently doing now. We haven't accessed these funds yet, and we have until September 2020 to access the funds. We don't lose the funds. They've been allocated to Rockford. But we also have some of our buildings and grounds. Currently, we're funding PPE and other health and safety materials and products. We're funding that out of buildings and grounds pretty much at this point. But yes, to answer your questions, we can access this money as well.
I think ultimately it's such a moving target right now. We don't know. There's like these different funds that are available, and until we know, it's going to be really hard to make a final decision, I would think.
let's assume worst case scenario though, right? That it's full distance learning. You almost have to have one-to-one at that point in time. Let's assume that you can't use the 151,000 exclusively for technology. Would it be correct in saying there would be a significant shortfall in funding to get devices in the hands of our students with what we know today?
When you
Well-
say, oh, go ahead, John.
Well, I can say we can go back to similar to what we did in spring. I do think we would have to increase the amount. You know, I basically, we didn't know how it was going to hit us at that time, so we kind of agreed internally that we would do one device for every 2 students. I do think that if a family has 3 students that don't have devices, we probably have to provide 3. I don't know what those numbers would be. I don't know how many, you know, there were many families that got along without our assistance. To what level they have that, I don't know. So that would almost entail an entirely new survey if we truly wanted to have one device for every 1 student, and how many families would be able to take care of that on their own. I can't tell you that.
So my only concern with that, John, is the equity divide we have with our families within our district. You know, if you go back to your very first slide when you talk about how many families we served, you know, that leads to my question as well. How many students were utilizing parents are working from home and they have one machine in their home, right? And now we have 2 children trying to share a machine with an adult as well, or doing all their stuff from a phone, right? That's a difficulty I have with equity within education, that if we're going to expect, we need to be able to provide as well.
Well, I agree completely. That we would have to do a very detailed survey to figure that out, and we'd also have to be prepared. I believe that if the numbers astound us, that, you know, let's say we asked those questions and everybody answered, you know, there might, you know, we've got 1,600 plus students and we find out that we need 1,500 devices, we're going to have to come up with it. You know what I mean? I agree with you, Eric. I think it has to be across the board equity. Unless I misunderstood your comment. I mean,
No. I was just sharing my thoughts for
Okay.
all others to hear as well. It wasn't a attack at you at all. I feel like I'm commandeering the question and answer session. I apologize for that.
No worries here.
We're at 6:17, so I'm just checking in to see if any other board members have questions for Mr. Engel.
I'm just wondering, can we maybe wait and see what the governor says? It seems like I know that we have a technology problem, but we also don't know what direction we're going. And I'm also wondering about if they're even going to be available. We could say we want to order 1,500 Chromebooks, but I just wonder, because the whole country is in the same situation, if that's even going to be possible.
It's part of the struggle. I do believe at some point, even if they allow us to go back full time, at some point we're going to be in some sort of hybrid and/or distance learning mode. Something could happen where a breakout in 1, 2, 3 buildings at one time, and that's where I think, you know, and maybe I'm wrong, but, you know, Rhonda and I have discussed this a little bit, but, you know, it's very possible that they could say, Rockford, you got to go distance learning. You know, I mean, so I think we have to prepare in the background because it's a possibility.
Yeah. I did tell John to prepare for one-to-one for every student. Even if we come back, especially initially right now, if we're allowed to come back, we need to do everything we can to mitigate the spread. And so even asking a student to share a Chromebook from hour 1 to hour 2. That's just not reasonable. And so we would need a device for every student, even if we're back full time. But to your point, I think, Amy, you just said it, we don't know if we're going to be able to get the devices, even the ones that have been on order, the 335. I mean, they're not here yet. And so, yeah, we're competing with every other district in the country. So, and I don't even know where Chromebooks come from. I don't know if they're even made in the United States. I mean, that's so bad to say.
John,
They come from my Chromebook farm. Remember, I told you I got one.
John, are you buying direct, or are you going through, a managed services provider that does purchasing, or some sort of a middleman?
I go through basically some large vendors that essentially, we've been buying HP mostly, and what happens is whoever happens to be the first, because I like to go out for a quote, obviously to keep everybody, semi-honest. But anyway, whoever kind of gets together with their regional rep first gets the best deal. So what happens is one will come way lower. If I send out 6 quote requests, one will come in way lower than the other 5. And that means that one person was the first one to contact HP and work out a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how it works out.
Okay.
It's generally been 2 or 3 vendors that I've been purchasing for the last, as long as I've been buying Chromebooks, about 6-7 years. So
sure. Okay.
And it's funny, Brady, if I go directly to HP, I can't get the same deal.
Yeah. Well, they get the volume discount if you go through the supplier. So
exactly. It's because I don't have the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is Amy. Just one thing that I'm interested in continuing to learn about, and I know it's a rapidly moving target, right? Funding sources and all of that. And I wholeheartedly agree with what Mr. Gordy said. If we go into a distance learning environment, we need to do everything we can, at least from my one solo opinion as a board member, to ensure that there is an equitable learning situation to the best of our ability for the students of this district without question and without hesitation. I'm very interested because there are multiple different funding sources that are kind of out there that we don't fully know or understand. I think it's important to think about this as one-time money, not sustainable money, right? So it's like an infusion, but it's not necessarily our long-term solution, right, for sustainability. And there seem to be quite a lot of unknowns right now about what some of that funding source looks like. Just like Mr. Engel and Superintendent Dean said, Wright County just approached you recently, and you're meeting with them tomorrow to talk about how might they help this district in some way to reduce some of the, financial burden associated with COVID-19 response planning. So to me, there's just a lot of unknowns right now. I'll just say that, Mr. John, I really appreciate the way you put the data together for the work session tonight. To me, it was just really helpful to see that perspective, just speaking from my perspective. Jessica, you're unmuted. Did you have something to add? No? Yes?
I was going to say something earlier, but no.
Nope. Okay. All right, Kevin, anybody else? We're at 6:23. We will be talking about this again in our regular board meeting. This is intended to be a prequel, an opportunity for John to first present to us so that we could kind of have a minute to ask some additional questions in a work session format.
Say, excuse me, but with that in mind, should I be removing any of these slides for that presentation? Because this was more of a discussion. Should I just be kind of reporting where we're at today, or I'm just kind of at a loss for that?
I guess it's Rhonda, that's your direction, but I don't think I would remove any of them.
Right.
I think it's good to know where we're at.
Yeah, there's no secrets there.
Okay.
I think it shows that you're considering the different angles, and that's important. So
Yeah.
Maybe I won't go into as much depth, and I'll try to make it a little bit quicker. How does that sound?
Just fine.
And John, you can always reference the fact that as we just discussed, and keep it moving.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Very good. Nicely put together. Great. So then our next, any further discussion on this topic? No. Just our next agenda item is just a validation that our next regularly scheduled meeting of the board happens in 6 minutes at 6:30 p.m. via teleconference, and that's the regular meeting of the board. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn the work session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the work session.
That's
Eric
a first
Gordy.
from Kevin Campbell, second from Eric Gordy. All right, great. Any further discussion? All right, we'll call by roll call vote. Brandy Anderson,
aye.
Beth Praska,
Hi.
Kevin Campbell,
Aye.
Jessica Johnson,
Aye.
Eric Gordy.
Aye.
Amy Edwards. Aye. We are adjourned. It is 6:25 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for adapting in this work session. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.